Hey, and welcome to Matt and Jess TV. I am Matt Roast here with Jessica Bun, and this is our Death and Other Details Season 1, Episode 3 review and reaction. See what I did there? This is what happens when you guys Hulu give me 2 episodes of something at once. I get very confused in the early going. I am almost as confused about that as I am with whatever is actually going on this show.
Yeah, there are a lot of suspects. There's a crazy amount of smoke all over Katherine. I mean, there was in the first 2 episodes. There's even more now. Did she actually kill Danny? I'm not sure. I mean, they definitely want us to think that she had a hand in this.
Okay, listen, I came out last week and said that I was Team Catherine is the killer. I am
Lots of smoke on that. You could very well be right.
I am standing by this.
Yeah.
However, I have a long and decorated history of flip-flopping and abandoning my picks in the middle of a season when things don't go my way. And here's my big concern with Catherine right now. As you have laid it out, there is an enormous amount of smoke. And if there's this much smoke this early, it feels like this fire is going to be put out and then like another fire is going to be starting somewhere else. Like I'm a little bit worried that it's a little too out there, but you know what? We're going to stick with it right now. We're going to look at the motives. We're going to say, okay, there's a good chance she might have done it. We'll outline the case, but also a case for a lot of other possible killers at the same time.
Absolutely.
All right, now before we do go further here with our detective caps, tinfoil hats, and all that, hit that subscribe button for more coverage of Death and Other Details all season long. And by doing that, you guys help us to be able to make these videos that we love to do for you so much.
Also, if you're looking for another really good whodunit, we're also covering Monsieur Spade here at the channel. Very kind of similar tones. That's over on AMC, and we've got reviews on that every week. Okay, let's just jump into the Catherine of it all, because if these murders are connected to Imogen's mom, there's really only 3 people that we're really looking at here. That's Llewellyn, the lawyer, Catherine, and Lawrence. They were really the only adults that were around back in the day that, would have had something to do with that. But if they're not connected, which Rufus kind of brought up, where he was just like, it is a possibility. Like, could they be connected? Sure, but are they? Nobody knows yet. That's just an assumption, right? Is it connected to her mom's murder, or is it connected to the corporation? Because it feels like a lot of this is all connected to whatever is going on with the corporation. But Catherine, we saw her in the first 2 episodes, touching the Kingmaker's face, touching a lot more in this episode. They are clearly having an affair.
Yeah.
But we also saw her forging her husband's signature on some documents. So, I mean, she's definitely shady, and she's definitely a top suspect. She has a lot to lose. Her corporation is going under. She has this potential deal on the table with the Chuns that she doesn't seem to really be kind of that involved with, seemingly. I mean, Anna was really pushing to get the family to the table, and like nobody wants to be there except her.
This is the worst business deal I can possibly imagine from like an enthusiasm perspective. And also, a lot of questions are coming back to this bill of lading that was hidden in the safe. And we saw, Imogen doing everything in her power to get a hold of this because there's information in here that could matter. And here's the big question mark when it comes to this. They couldn't find the date in which this certain chemical was being used that was basically banned in 1989. If this chemical was being used up until, I don't know, let's just throw in there, they were partying like it's 1999 with this chemical, then all of a sudden you're putting yourself in a situation where, okay, there's a lot of illegal activity going on in this company's past. If Catherine doesn't have this deal go through, none of this gets found out, and then everything is okay. Yeah, sure, you're broke. Like, that's another big problem that you got to figure out. But if the options are either you're broke or you're going to get discovered with this other thing and you're probably going to go to prison for that, just if it's me, I would rather be broke. I would rather just figure out some other sort of way to make money. So it's like, if there is a motive as to why she wouldn't want this deal to go through, like, that's certainly it. And
Mhm.
as for how it would connect back to the murder of Keith, aka Danny, it's all kind of brought onto this idea of having somebody die on a cruise that's designed to bring companies together. It's kind of a bad omen, isn't it? Where it's just like, this guy just died. Do we really want to sign on a dotted line?
And it's also done what maybe Catherine and Lawrence wanted, which is squash this deal, because it feels a lot like Anna is the person who's brought this whole deal together to bring these families together to get this money. It's going to funnel back into their company. I mean, we saw that conversation with her and her dad where she's like, yeah, I made some mistakes, but I'm here to fix those mistakes and I'm here to bring that money back in. If Catherine or Lawrence don't want that money to come back in, killing off Danny clearly stopped that from happening, because now the Chuns are like, okay, listen, like we're out. We don't want anything to do with this anymore. Like, yeah, we know that there was some problems going on with their company. Yeah, maybe we were going to give you the money. Now there's a murder attached to it. I don't know. I feel like I'm out.
The advantage Catherine has at this point is just that nobody's paying that close attention to her. Like, clearly nobody's
Except us.
yeah, I know, clearly, obviously, and I guess the Kingmaker, but like here's the thing here is that because everybody's attention is kind of elsewhere, clearly she's able to get away with this affair already because nobody's paying attention enough for her so that she could do all that, or at least she could until this episode. But beyond all that, they got to not be paying attention to her when it comes to business dealings either. Like, she's gotten a certain measure of flexibility that she can do whatever she wants. But I do have this other question now for Mr. Lawrence here. What are you doing? Like, both literally and figuratively, because he's not being allowed to talk to Rufus. He's not being allowed to talk to anybody. Clearly, his wife has time to go off and have this affair. It's just like, what are you doing all day? Are you just like sitting around on the boat, just twiddling your thumbs? You're not actively involved in like this corporations coming together?
He feels like he's really checked out. Like whatever is going on, he just feels like he's checked out. Like I think he probably knows that his wife is having this affair and he's just checked out of his marriage. The company's going under. He's just checked out of it, and I think he's fine to let it just go under, and that's why he hasn't decided to actually name his daughter publicly as CEO. That he's just kind of like, nothing matters anymore. Poor me, the sad, billionaire. Oh no.
My life is so miserable.
Yeah.
He's a fascinating character. I do think he's going to have a role to play. Okay, ultra tinfoil hat theory.
Oh, all right.
What if they don't want Lawrence to talk because Lawrence would actually implicate somebody else, and they know that if he gets in that environment, maybe he's not good at handling the pressure. Maybe this is why he shouldn't be in that corporate negotiation either, is that he will say too much. And in this sense, they're more protecting the actual murderer, or they're protecting some other sort of nefarious things from coming out, because in actuality, Lawrence just sucks and he's just not good at his job. Catherine's been running things behind the scenes. Now Anna is running things, and he just, as a figurehead, you just like cart out there, and it's just like, okay, Lawrence, smile at people. We're going to do everything else now.
Okay, you know who doesn't suck? Hild. And you know why? Because not only is she quite smart and quite funny on this, but she also played Donna over on Only Murders in the Building. And this show feels very much in that same kind of whodunit. You've got an older man with a younger woman looking into crimes. It kind of has the same feel with just a little bit less of the comedy until this episode. I mean, she's so funny.
I didn't even know it was the same actress until you told me. I guess the accent threw me off, just the character's mannerisms threw me off. Like, the dynamic between her and Rufus is pretty funny. And ultimately, the big problem here is going to go back to Imogene, because, Hilda's pretty good at her job, but I think her description is a little bit different than Rufus's. I think if you're an agent of this variety, you're probably out to just get the clearest answer, sort of, wash your hands of it, move on to the next thing. And there is a lot of understandable smoke here about Imogene being in that room, getting rid of the footage, smashing the watch. But Hilda, you even pointed this out. This watch smashing is such an aggressive act.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody's going to be so aggressive and then be so kind of secretive and shady when it comes to getting rid of Keith, aka Danny. It just the two things don't line up.
Okay, so we have this sort of it's separate but not separate story that's going on with Alexandra and the Super PAC and the Kingmaker, where when she had ordered that cart to go to Danny's room, she didn't really know exactly what was going on because she even said that to Trip. She was just like, "It's not what it looks like," sort
Yeah.
of thing. And the reason it doesn't look like what it looks like is because she got a message from the Kingmaker that was basically like there was another Super PAC donor that wanted to send like a bottle of whatever to this room. So she was like, okay, well, if that's the case and I got to kind of schmooze a little bit, sure, no problem. I'll send this bar cart. I'll send, this booze, no problem. But who is this other donor? Because she's basically like telling the Kingmaker, listen, there's only one donor that I know of that's on this boat, and it's Lawrence, which would also, I guess, slash also be Katherine. I mean, they're
Yeah.
married and they share their money. So who else on this boat could be this sort of secret donor that the Kingmaker would know about? And let's take a look at Sunil.
Yes.
Lots of money, lots of money. And he's definitely been inserting himself into the case in a very helpful way.
Yeah.
And for all of you sleuths out there like us, we know that when somebody is like extra helpful and here to just do the right thing and kind of, charm Imogen a little bit and show her what she needs to see. See, I'm being so helpful. I'm the helpful billionaire. It's like usually those people are inserting themselves into the case to get information to know how they can like hide their any mistakes that they may have made.
He's a really interesting candidate at this point because he kind of ties into the other big reveal at the end of this episode, which I guess isn't that big of a real reveal for all of us because we already saw what was going on with Jules and the passport. So we already knew this guy isn't quite what he says he was going to be, but it was kind of just like casually dropped in this episode that Sunil found Jules in London.
Mhm.
And so clearly he's the person responsible for bringing in Jules. I don't know what the vetting process was like. I don't know if anybody else did any sort of interviews or a background check on this guy at all, or if Sunil was just basically like, I'm just gonna bring this guy onto the ship and he's gonna do whatever it is that I want him to do. Hey, Jules, do you want to hide under there? Oh, Jules, do you want to go and do this? Do you want to kill this person? Like, we don't know what the background is, all of this. Beyond all of that, there are no cameras below the decks.
Mhm.
And, there is kind of a way to sort of look at this and be like, oh, I trust my people. I know my people wouldn't do anything bad, which sounds really great and benevolent until there's a murder on the ship. And then all of a sudden it looks like you're clearly hiding something, especially since this is definitely not an instance of Sunil not being able to afford the cameras. You can afford the cameras, dude. You just chose not to.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, did he choose not to because he knew he was going to take care of this murder on this boat? I
Uh,
don't think so. I mean, like this boat is down to the details of the towels, right? Like I don't think he spent all this money to build this boat, to make sure there's no cameras, to make sure that he could hide this murder of Danny. It feels almost like was this something that was premeditated? Maybe. Or is this something that came up on the boat? Because we saw with Alexandra and the Kingmaker and Danny that when he was still pretending to be Keith, he mentioned to her sort of this like, I know something is going on. I want to meet these other Super PAC donors. Like, who are they? You know me and I'm willing to be one. So like, who are these other people and how can I meet them? That was something he was digging into and the Kingmaker knew it and he was standing right there. And it feels like the Kingmaker really is the key to a lot of different things. Do I think he did it? I'm not sure, but he definitely has a hand in everything. He is a guy with information that he would be able to bring back to Sunil, who then might be like, okay, that Super PAC donor is me. So, I'm not okay with this. So how are we going to deal with it? And the Kingmaker might be like, I have a way. This is how we're going to deal with it. Like He made a very interesting comment in the beginning episodes where he was just like, "Oh, they rolled in on this cart? I'm too big of a guy to be on this cart. It's clearly not me." And Rufus was like, "Well, you could have hired somebody."
Yeah.
And that really stuck with me. The details matter, right?
Yeah.
Like, did he hire somebody?
I think what makes this show so interesting right now, and I'm sure there are some people out there who are probably just like, I want more answers. Give me more answers. It's like, I like that I don't have any answers right now. I like that we are so much in the weeds of stuff, even to the point where you already mentioned it, where Rufus is just sort of like, these whatever happened to Imogene's mom, that might not be the same person that did something to Keith, because that
Yeah.
opens up like all these different possibilities now as to what's happening.
Yeah, because the Kingmaker is also in a relationship with Catherine. So maybe it's not Catherine, but if it's the Kingmaker and he's in love with her, which he is, it sounds
Hmm.
like this has been going on a really long time, that they're in love with each other, that they want to be with each other. If whatever's going on with Danny and the super PAC, and she's also, part of she's also a donor, her and her husband donors, he could be protecting her. This could be something out of love.
Okay, I've got an absolutely unhinged theory that I'm going to bring
Oh,
up
all
now.
right, let's go.
Okay, so what if Trip, don't want to stay with me here, what if Trip, in between all his anger problems and all his other issues, he had a call and he was just like, hello, this is Lawrence. I am powerful super PAC donor. Is it possible that Trip pretended to be his father to get this to happen with Alexandra? He's got a perfect alibi. He's in the room with Alexandra at the
Mhm,
time in which the cart is being ordered.
mhm,
Obviously, somebody else would need to be in the cart. It
mhm.
couldn't be him. But if he's looking for the perfect way to be like, okay, that is 100% not me. There's only a tiny group of people who we know exactly where they were at the time that Keith was dead. And it's a really good smokescreen if, this is a big if I actually thought that Trip was capable of pulling off a plan like this, because this guy is such a loose cannon and such a loser. I don't really think he could have done this.
Yeah, this plan was put together so smoothly. I just don't think Trip has anything to do with anything. Okay, let's talk about Layla. Let's talk about Jules again.
Okay.
So we watched Imogen following Layla grab a rope, grab, the knife, almost like Clue. She might as well have had a revolver and a candlestick in that bag. She was just picking up all these
Yeah.
things where I was like, okay, whatever. Then she goes to this end of this hallway that's a dead end and disappears. And we see Imogen figure it out where she ends up taking her earring and finding this secret door, goes in there. We don't see Layla, but we see Jules, who's like, "Oh, you shouldn't have come in here."
Yeah.
Okay, so Jules is in there, Layla's in there. How does Layla know that there is this secret door on this boat? Unless she's been on this boat before, or while she was on this boat, she was brought on this boat by Jules or Sunil or whatever is going on. Like, she didn't just happen across this. You're not finding this unless you know that you're looking for something.
I'm starting to feel like maybe Layla is some sort of like super master secret agent or something like this, because we get all this information in this episode, even more about that she's clearly gone through something and she's trying to protect herself at just about every point, to the extent where it feels like there's something really, really wrong. What if she's doing all this because she knows that she's a target from all these various people because of her
Mhm.
secret agent deeds or something to that extent? Like, she could be using a lot of other things as sort of a cover, or she's just sort of establishing herself as, okay, you know what? Nobody's going to expect anything from me. It's kind of like the perception that Catherine has at times, where nobody's really expecting that much from her either. Like, nobody seems to be talking about Layla in like a, oh, what is she really capable of sort of way. And it creates an interesting sort of guise for her to go and do all these different sort of things. We don't know that much about her past, and I think that's what makes that character a little bit interesting. Like,
Mhm.
I'm not willing to go on the, okay, Layla is the killer, because we just don't have any information to suggest that, unless like, Keith was up to something that, Rufus didn't even know about and there's a connection that way. But I think it's pretty obvious at this point that Layla's kind of using what's going on as a way for her to go and do these other things and nobody really suspect it.
Unless she watched Jules go through that door, she is a bigger player than I think we thought that she was. She knows this boat and she knows secret passages in this boat.
Yeah.
Somebody either told her because she's part of something or she followed Jules in there. But the
Yeah.
way that she was like, grabbing the knife, grabbing the rope, I was just like, it feels like she knows this boat. And then we got to talk about Llewellyn, who is still locked up in whatever closet, all tied up. They were trying to get she's trying to get a hold of him, Anna, this whole episode, like calling him,
Yeah.
calling him, nothing. What is going on with him? Like, we saw that he gave that briefcase, to we'll call her the maitre d' of the ship,
Yeah.
and then just gone and tied up all this time. Like, what is going on?
Okay, I have two schools of thought here with Llewellyn. Either he has been tied up by the possibly nefarious duo of Layla and Jules and something is going on there,
Possibly, yeah.
or Llewellyn's just kind of freaky and he's just got something freaky going on with somebody on the ship.
That's what I originally thought, and because he's been in there for a little while, I was actually wondering if it was Danny. But I feel like they would have searched the closet in the
Yeah.
room or whatever, but I was kind of like, was something maybe going on with Danny, and now Danny's dead, so now nobody knows that he's tied up in wherever he is. He would be the only person that would just be like, well, nobody knows he's there anymore.
There's a couple of sort of loose threads that are just kind of like dangling around. So I'm going to try to pick some of these off here at the end of this video. So one of them is just that we don't really get to see a lot of what the Chuns individually are doing per se. Like, it feels like there's a lot of emptiness there that could be explored. I'm not saying that's connected to Llewellyn, but I think it's interesting. It's also interesting that we learn in this episode more that Eleanor and Anna have a much deeper history than I think any of us thought previously. And that could play into what happens a little bit later if Eleanor has been trying to play Anna to some degree or vice versa, just because they know that there might be some sort of built-in trust there because of their past relationship. Finally, Derek, or that Derek, or whatever you're going for. You're not even in this episode, and yet you're mentioned. There's still something off about this guy.
I think he has video is why I think he's there. Like, he's obviously not the killer. Like, that's just, it doesn't make any sense. But like, he doesn't have any motive.
Yeah.
Like, unless it's like, oh, I'm killing for TikTok views. And, yeah, sometimes, stop filming your crimes, TikTokers. Like, stop it. But I feel like maybe he was filming something for himself and caught something in the background.
I think there's a pretty good chance of that. Like, unless you just wanted to go with the stereotype of, okay, we're going to have an extra sort of TikToker who's just annoying people. And I hope it's something more interesting than that. That is more interesting than that. I hope that this show goes that route. Like, I'm still really enjoying it. I think we're a few episodes in. We have about 1 million different suspects. There's a lot of different things going on here.
Yeah, this is a really fun show. And especially, while we're in this period of time where there is no Only Murders in the Building and we're waiting for that to come back, this is a really, really good show in the meantime.
All right, fellow sleuths, we're going to turn this over to you. Who do you guys think is responsible? Give us your theories, your thoughts. Also, be sure to hit that subscribe button and be sure to click up there on that card if you want to watch our review of the Death and Other Details premiere. Also, thank you to our patrons so much for your support. We do weekly live streams on Patreon talking all about Death and Other Details. Check out that link in the description, and we will see you here next time.